بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطاهرين ما دام ما في السماوات والأرضين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم إنا نسألك علما ينفعنا وارفعنا. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا واسعا وعملا متقبلا وشفاء من كل داء. اللهم لك الحمد كله ولك الشكر كله وإليه يرجع الأمر كله. اللهم اهدنا واهد قلوبنا ويسر الهدى لنا. اللهم اجعلنا لك شاكرين لك ذاكرين، إليك أواهين منيبين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ربنا تقبل توبتنا واغسل حوبتنا واجب دعوتنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم سدد ألسنتنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك رضاك والجنة ونعوذ بك من سخطك وغضبك والنار. اللهم إنا نسألك رحمة من عندك تسعدنا بها في الدارين، ونسألك مغفرة من عندك تصلح بها شأننا في الدارين، ونسألك أن تلزمنا سبيل الاستقامة لا نزيغ عنها أبدا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا يا رب جمعا مرحوما، واجعل تفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما. لا تجعل فينا ولا منا ولا بيننا شقيا ولا محروما برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. ألف بين قلوبنا وأصلح ذات بيننا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها، أنت وليها ومولاها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم طهر قلوبنا من النفاق، وأعمالنا من الرياء، وألسنتنا من الكذب، وأعيننا من الخيانة، فإنك تعلم خائنة الأعين وما تخفي الصدور برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. سبحان ربنا رب العزة عما يصفون، وسلام على المرسلين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. وبعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. كيف حالكم؟ MashaAllah. All the chair ladies fine? Good. The class may have decreased, but the chair ladies are still constant. Tamam. All the brothers fine? Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. Tabarakallah. MashaAllah. Tamam. Some new faces I see. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Haji Fakhri is also here, MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Today we start with a very important surah. And all the surahs of the Quran are important. But sometimes the responsibility of teaching certain chapters weigh more heavily on the shoulders than teaching other chapters. Surah Al-Humazah is one such chapter. Very beautiful, very relevant to the challenges that you and I may be experiencing. And perhaps from one particular perspective, you can divide people into two broad categories. You get the makers, and then you get the breakers. Surah Al-Humazah starts off by talking about the breakers. May we not be from that category, but may we be from the category of makers, builders. Now, another very important lesson about Surah Al-Humazah and the challenging scenario that it presents to us I think one of the beautiful things about the chapter is the fact that Allah is not oblivious, Allah is not unmindful to the day-to-day challenges that the Prophet ﷺ experienced at the time and the day-to-day challenges that you and I experience. Allah is not unmindful to it. Allah is not oblivious of it. So here Allah records, according to some, a particular challenge which the Prophet ﷺ faced in terms of the opposition that he had. But many of our exegetes, those who comment on the Holy Quran, they are quick to say that the surah doesn't relate to a particular incident, because some say it does. And there's a number of different narrations. The one narration says it relates to Walid ibn al-Mughira. The other narration says it relates to Umayyah ibn Khalaf. These were all oppositions to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Fakhruddin al-Razi is quick to say that it doesn't relate to a particular person or particular circumstance, but rather it is very general. In other words, its application is as true as 1400 years ago as it is today. So to start off, and not to go or move away from our methodology, we first look at the whole idea of surah, isn't it? Surah. Now, literally the word surah refers to a hall, right? But not a low hall, a high hall. Simply because the meanings contained within every single chapter of the Quran is high and lofty. Okay, surah first. Point number 2 is, what is the name of the surah? So here we have a difference of opinion, an understandable difference of opinion. Some scholars say that the name of the surah is Suratul Humazah. That is the most famous and probably most authentic. Suratul Humazah. Ibn Abbas, as he does in other places, he says the name of the surah is Suratu Wailul Likulli Humazah. That's like a standard practice according to some scholars. They name the chapter after the first verse of the chapter. Others refer to the surah as Suratul Lumazah. The word Humazah comes, and then afterwards the word Lumazah also comes, and some people give the name of this chapter as Suratul Lumazah. Okay. So we want to start and we want to talk about certain issues, and I think let's work through the translation inshallah, and as we're working through the translation we can highlight certain very important points. So the surah starts off by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying Wailun. Now you may look at Suratul Humazah or Lumazah or Wailul Likulli Humazah and think to yourself, here's a whole lot of difficult words. We'll take it step by step. Life by the inch is a kinch, and then we'll sort it out inshallah, word by word. So the first word that we find here is Wailun. Wailun. Okay? So now to help you along also in terms of your Arabic, the word Wailun, is it ism fa'lu harf? Anybody? Ism. Why do you say it's an ism? Because of the tanween. Wailun. A tanween is something which is peculiar to a noun, an ism in the Arabic language. Wailun. Allah starts off by saying Wailun. Now the word Wailun in your translation, what does it translate as? Woe. Right? Woe be. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like cursing a certain type of person that has certain types of characteristics. Allah says Wailun. There's a narration that says, and Allah knows best, that Wail is a valley in Jahannam, in the fire of hell. That it will take a person 40 kharif. The word kharif is years, but not our years. In other worldly years, it will take him 40 years to reach the bottom of that particular valley. Wailun. So that punishment in the fire of hell is reserved for a person who has the following character makeup. Wailun. So if you wanted to, you can understand it as a valley in the hellfire, or just simply woe. Allah's cursing a person. And when Allah curses a person, it means that person is far removed from the mercy of Allah. So either way you look at it, whatever interpretation you're going with, it is still severe. To be distant from the mercy of Allah, Allah says woe to you. Or to be in that valley in the hellfire. So wailun to whom? Who is Allah saying woe to? Who is far removed from the mercy of Allah? Who finds himself in this valley of hell? Likulli humazah. So here very importantly Allah talks about certain character traits. So Allah says woe be to li. What does the word li mean? For. Ism fa'lu harf. Harf. Li means for. Wailun li. Woe be to every. Kulli. Li kulli. For every. Kul means every. And the next word is Humazah. Humazah. Now I consulted the, like the English translation, and what English translation do you have for that? Sorry? Slanderer. And then Lumazah would be scorner. Right? But here what happens is the word Humazah, Hamazah, our scholars refer to it as backbiting, ghiba. And then Lumazah, from the word Lamaza, means to scorn. And that is when you do something negative in front of a person. So if you look back, so if you just write those two meanings down, Wailul likulli humazah. Humazah means backbiter. If you wanted to, you could say slanderer, but backbiting is more apt. Wailul likulli humazatil lumazah. Lumazah refers to a person that scorns you, in other words, to your face. Every slanderer and every scorner. Now, just to facilitate understanding, you'd find persons, for example, like Walid ibn al-Mughira, an arch enemy of Islam. He used to do two things. He used to criticize the Prophet ﷺ to his face, and he used to backbite about the Prophet ﷺ. Now both of these are vices, and they are I think the more important part for us is for us to understand it as a vice. So when Allah says woe be to every backbiter, what is the definition of backbiting? Backbiting is when you speak the truth behind somebody's back, that had you said it to their face, they would not have liked it. So it's not falsehood, it's the truth. For example, something which we deem as innocent as, he eats a lot. He eats a lot. Is it the truth? Yes, he does eat a lot. Everybody has one plate, he has 3 plates. So is it the truth? Yes. Do you mention it to him? No. You talk about him behind his back. And if were you to say it to his face, you wouldn't like it. That's backbiting. And we have become very sophisticated in terms of justifying our backbiting. And one of the common retorts when a person backbites about another is they say, but it's the truth. I'm speaking the truth. Exactly, that's what makes it backbiting. If you were lying about the person, then it becomes something else altogether. In our tradition, we refer to it as buhtan. That's even worse. Because now you're lying about the person behind the person's back, that should you say it to his face, would obviously not like it. So we're talking about a person in terms of his makeup, he has this quality of backbiting. In other places in the Quran, Allah talks about it and says, لا يغتب بعضكم بعضا. Allah likens it to something else. أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه. Would one of you love to devour the carrion flesh of his brother? No, you wouldn't. Allah likens backbiting to eating the dead meat of your brother. In another narration talking about fasting, it's a weak narration, but it does much to help us facilitate and understand. There was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, a lady was fasting. She was fasting, in other words, abstaining from food and drink, but she wasn't safeguarding herself from the honor of her Muslim brothers and sisters, and she was backbiting. The narration reads that the Prophet ﷺ told him to induce her to vomit. She fell ill, to induce her to vomit. She vomited and pieces of flesh came out of her tummy. And that was the backbiting. That was the flesh that she was partaking of a Muslim brother and sister. Years ago, I went to Medina and I took a resolve, I'm not going to buy any more Islamic literature. You know, I told myself that, and everybody else around me is also telling me that. Some people have the idea that if you have, books in the library, you need to read all of the books first. You don't have to read all of the books first. Some of them are simply just encyclopedic material that you must reference, that's all. But anyway, I went and I said, I'm not going to buy me any more books. But then I saw one book written in English. The title of the book was Backbiting, the Root Cause of All Evil. Backbiting, the root cause of all evil. You and I sometimes, we don't appreciate the gravity. And I'm telling you, if you're listening to this discourse just as a matter of interest, then it's just another discourse talking about backbiting. But if you resolve to take practical steps to eliminate backbiting, it's going to mean the eliminating of certain relationships that you might have. Because certain of our relationships is only based on backbiting. When you meet some people, we only talk about other people. It's backbiting. It's the truth we're talking about them, but you're talking behind the back. And you follow? It's in today's time, and looking at our social dynamic, even sometimes amongst men, it is difficult to safeguard yourself from backbiting. And you can come to a point, the first level is you protect your own tongue from backbiting. But ultimately you must come to a point where you protect your tongue against backbiting and you protect your ears against hearing about backbiting. It's quite difficult because of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. But it's a principal position that you and I need to take in relation to backbiting. Now, and here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He treats it with a great degree of gravity. He says, Waylun, woe. Oh, it refers to the valley in the fire of hell that it takes 40 years of the afterlife to you to reach the bottom of it. And that punishment is reserved for whom? For the person who has this particular qualities. And what is that quality? This person is Humazah, this person backbites. May Allah forgive us. And Allah knows best. This is like not directly related to our discussion, but just to expound a bit more on backbiting. And I'm sure that you've had this positive experience in your life. Backbiting is a coward's approach to an issue. So what happens is what courage does it take for you to backbite about somebody else? You're speaking behind the person's back. He can't defend himself. You're speaking about him. What you were supposed to do, because you're speaking the truth. And let's say this person is wrong, he eats too much. The cowardly thing to do is to backbite about the person and tell somebody else, "Kijk hoe baie eet hy. Look how much he eats." And the honorable thing to do, if it was really a problem, would be to do what? To approach the person and make amr bil ma'roof, call towards good and forbid from evil. But because you and I are too cowardly to do that, the cop-out is that we speak behind the person's back. We must do something about it. Now what am I going to do about it? Am I going to do something positive about it? Or am I going to do something negative about it? I do something negative about it. I go speak behind the person's back. And I tell you, if at some given point in time a person is doing something wrong, as opposed to backbiting about the person, you approach the person, many times you'd find that the thought you had about that person that would have manifested in backbiting about it, that thought was an incorrect thought. And how did you resolve it? Simply by doing the manly thing and approaching the person and asking the person, oh, I see. You didn't take to make light of a very serious matter. You didn't take a barakachi, but that was they were packing it for somebody who was sick. I thought you were taking all the barakachis when other people didn't eat. By way of example. You with me? It's like it's a light-hearted example. But see how you could have told, kyk hoe vat hulle barakachis en ons nog nie geëet nie. But if you approach the person and say, no, they packed this from beforehand because so-and-so was sick, it's not even for me. You with me? Because you did the amr bil ma'roof thing, you avoided the backbiting. And if you were to backbite, actually you weren't backbiting, you were buhtan, because it's not true. What you thought was true is not true. So this is it's a quality which, Fadlan. If you're praising a person behind his back, then it's absolutely not backbiting, because it's the truth. And if you were to say it to his face, you would be happy. But backbiting is when you're talking the truth, but it's a negative thing about the person. If you were to say it to his face, the person wouldn't be happy. And then also what happens is you get multiple forms of backbiting. Some of the ulama even say that you get backbiting, you don't even have to speak to anybody, it's just in your heart. The person comes to you, and then a thought comes across your heart, and you entertain that thought. So you're speaking to yourself, you're having an internal dialogue about a negative thing about this particular person. That is backbiting. Sajib, on one occasion the Prophet ﷺ came into his house, and Aisha radhiyallahu anha was there. And you know, she's the mother of the believers, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ. She's part of the Ahlul Bayt, and she's of the mothers of the believers. On one occasion, but that doesn't necessarily mean, or doesn't mean that she's infallible. She's fallible like the rest of us. On one occasion, where they were in the household, a lady came in. Now this lady happened to be short, and she didn't say, you know, shorty or something. She made an indication with her hand, you know, like shorty. You know, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ightabtiha." You have indeed made a ghiba about her. In other words, you must remedy this and you must seek her forgiveness. So this is a very important point. And why this point is so fundamental for me as well, and I see that our time is up already, allow me to comment in this way. I read something unique about many of the qualities that are going to be mentioned in Surah Al-Humazah. At the end of Surah Al-Humazah, a person who has those qualities, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that that person is going to be confined to a fire, the fire of hell. May Allah save us. That fire is going to burn that person physically. And I could never understand before when Allah talks about that fire reaching the deepest recesses of his heart as well. So in other words, the fire and the punishment is going to be aimed at two things, at his external as well as his internal. It talks to me about a journey that you and I need to undertake. And that is, if we're not going to undertake that journey now, it's going to happen anyways, but we must undertake it voluntarily, by our own volition. Those negative qualities found within ourselves, like backbiting, it's going to be purged from us. How? By a fire which Allah talks about in Surah Al-Humazah, that's going to reach the insides of your spiritual heart and purify you of those lowly qualities. The test for us is, let us not defer that purificatory process to being confined to the fire of hell in order for that to happen. Let us do it now. And it takes an effort. It's not a flaccid process that, I attend the class and tomorrow I'm going to have rid myself of the lesser qualities and embellish myself with the higher qualities. It's not going to happen. And a physical operation is easier. Believe me, wallahi, than purging ourselves of qualities as mentioned here. For example, backbiting. You have to tread this path to understand what I'm saying. You must have a consciousness that is not permissible for me to backbite. And whilst having that consciousness, give yourself a day and see. And we must become a bit, I think, serious about this reformation, not of the person next to me or my family back home, but of my own self. And today we've come across a quality which I hope has been, expounded well enough for us to understand what this vice is called, and for us to recognize this vice for the vice that it is. All that is required from us now is to steer clear from it. It's not easy. It's a challenge. It's so difficult to rid ourselves of this quality that the person who doesn't do it in this world, then Allah SWT is going to do it in the year after through the fire. And not any fire, wail. And narullah, the fire of Allah, mu'sada, closed upon him, and he will be tied, and he is going to be cleansed of it. Let us not wait for that time to come. Let us evolve from that low ebb, what we can scarcely refer to as humanity, and let us rid ourselves of the lesser qualities and embellish ourselves with the higher qualities, so that we can become not of the lowest of the low, but the highest of the high. May Allah grant us the understanding, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.